Keeping what simple?
So generally, how we take care of ourselves and health. It's very easy in the modern world of media to get overcomplicated with health and what to do about it. And so this one's about bringing it back to basically the 80-20 rule, which is you're going to get, in this context, it would be you're going to get 80% of the results from 20% of the details. All the rest of it is specifics, which comes into play, if you have particular issues, autoimmune issues, or something like that, where you have, or athletes who are optimizing for performance. Okay, you have all these areas where you would like to get into the details because it's important, but most people, and particularly most of the people that are ever going to listen to this, are going to be, where do I start? You know, what can I do that doesn't have me counting macros all day long and, you know, worrying about whether I'm keto or carnivore or vegan or, all those things. It's there's there's low-hanging fruit everywhere, and it's important to prioritize that to build the foundation. And then down the road, you've kind of got a lot of good habits built. You're getting a lot of results. A lot of the temptations to go in the wrong direction have kind of subsided. Then okay, you can start to get into the nitty-gritty if you want and you're interested in it. Today we'll just kind of walk through some specifics on each of the 5 levers of health and how we can keep it simple within those. We'll go down the list. What do we have for the levers? We have nutrition, movement, sleep, psychology, and community, social network type stuff. So, nutrition, that's normally the first thing that people think of when it comes to health and keeping ourselves in line. So, how do we make it easy? How do we make it simple?
I think just focusing on the types of food, not necessarily focusing on how much the quantity or the macronutrients or how much calories things have in it. um, just the types of food. Like throw back to the, food pyramid where there's different food groups. Like look at the food as food groups and determine, okay, am I eating majority of my food in grains? Am I eating a lot of dairy? Am I getting enough protein, like meat sources or veggie sources, but am I getting enough? So like really just breaking it down into the food groups, I think just takes any complication out of it, because you can really get complicated with how many macronutrients you're going to eat or how many calories you're trying to hit in a day. And there is a time and a place for that. If you have specific goals for losing weight or trying to change your body composition, that there is a time and a place for that. But I think when you're just starting out and you don't want to complicate things, just look at the types of food you're eating.
So, obviously, we're functioning under the assumption that the traditional, like, federally imparted food pyramid is kind of garbage and basically had nothing to do with health. Um, so how do you rank order the food groups? Like, what do you think are the priorities, and what are the things that we just don't need to worry about getting?
Well, our approach is a more primal approach where we look at historically, evolutionarily, how would people have eaten um, before farming and all of the new industrial ways of processing foods. So the main food groups they would have been eating, consuming, is protein in the forms of uh, normally animal protein, so meat, um, and they'd be hunter gatherers, so the fruits and vegetables, anything that they could grow and anything that's from the ground. um, Nothing would be processed, right? So those two are the main. If you're focusing on getting enough protein and you're adding in the micronutrients in the form of fruits and vegetables, and whole foods, I think you're doing pretty good. You don't need to worry about am I getting my grains, because we can do a whole episode on, are grains good? Should you be focusing on that? Right. And the implications of grains. But I think those two main things, protein in the form of normally animal proteins, you can get protein from vegetable sources, although they're not complete proteins.
Yeah, and they're less bioavailable. But again, details, right? Like
Details, yeah.
you nailed it. With the simplest thing that I ever tell people about health is particularly is when they talk about nutrition. If you're eating plants and animals, you'll be all right. You can dive into the details about, what's better, and then there's the whole separate topic of how is our meat being treated, where are you getting your meat from, the quality of it, the vegetables, are they organic, all that stuff. Like it does matter, but particularly if you're coming from standard American diet, like crackers and chips and pop and that type stuff, any direction, any steps in the direction of whole foods, and by whole foods, basically we mean how close is it to how nature designed it. So the easiest way to think about that is one ingredient foods. If the ingredient label is one ingredient, that's basically a whole food. I'm I'm not sure if there's anything that's not a whole food that has. I'm sure there's some things that are garbage for you that are one ingredient, but for the most part, that's probably a safe bet. Um, is to go the whole foods route and prioritize the protein and fill the rest of the plate with fruits and vegetables, and that's pretty good. Anything else on in terms of nutrition that you think is like low hanging fruit, so to speak?
No, I think when you're keeping it simple, that's the first step. And if you can nail um, changing the composition of your foods, then we can get more complicated from there.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I think the one thing that I would qualify as simple, um, it's a little bit more specific, but I think you get the bang for your buck out of it, is the idea of prioritizing the protein. Um, when you're making your meals, make sure that majority of the calories are coming from protein. Start with your protein, get your, the general idea is 30 grams per meal, which is basically the only number that I ever use when I talk about nutrition is the amount of protein. And so if you can get your 30 grams, you know, anything, a hamburger, chicken breast, those are all going to hit those quota. I think it's like what, 5 eggs? Yeah, 5 eggs. And then fill the rest of your plate with fruits and vegetables, and you're going to be all right. Okay, movement. So we break movement down into two categories. First one being non exercise movement, and the second one, obviously, being exercise movement. Non exercise movement is where simple is the key, really, is walk, hike. If you like cycling, do it. Like just these aren't, this isn't designed to get you a workout. It's just designed to get you into rhythmic moving and stopping you from spending all your time sitting around. Um, that's it. This should be low intensity. A good simple way to determine whether you're doing that is if you can do it and hold a conversation, then that means you're below the threshold of intensity where you're going to start to get into exercise type movement, where you're getting into, cardio. So that's the simplest one. The non exercise movement, just do it.
Well, and to add in, um, you don't necessarily need this, but I find it really valuable is to have a step counter, because you don't realize how little you move until your watch says, or your phone, if you carry your phone all the time. Our phones now have step counters. Your it will say, 3,000 steps. And you're like, wow, 3,000 for the whole day? Like if you're aware that 10,000 is kind of the gauge for, the cardiovascular health that we should strive for, then looking at the counter and going, oh, I only hit 3,000, you have a big improvement you could be making by just moving more, right? So, like making simple changes to park farther away from the store and walk a little further, or even just going for a 5 or 10 minute walk on a break, instead of just sitting there and scrolling on your phone. So, that's keeping it simple. It's like trying to move more throughout your day, just having that in the back of your mind.
Yeah, that's a really easy accountability tool that reminds you. Okay, so then this is where it gets a little tricky for me when we're talking about exercise movement because I think this is one of those areas where you're going to get more into complexity um, when you start to talk about resistance training. The reason is because now you're increasing the risk of injury and creating bad movement patterns that can set you up for injury in the future. So, without going into those details about what the specifics of movement and functional movement and posture and how to get um, the optimal benefit from your workouts, the way to keep this simple for now is don't focus on completing the exercises. So if you're at the gym, whatever you're doing, don't the emphasis should not be on did I get my 10, did I get my 12 reps, did I get my 15 reps and just get them done. Focus on the feeling of being strong during your repetitions, which generally involves slowing the repetition down. You should feel like the exercise is difficult from the beginning of the range of motion all the way through to the end of the range of motion. Because a lot of people work out and they start, let's say I'm doing a press, they start in they're in the starting position and they use all this effort and they blast through the motion and then they just catch the weight at the end rather than slowly starting the motion so that you're getting the engagement on the muscles and then pushing through the range of motion. That's kind of the best way that I can conceptualize keeping it simple. Um, Body weight is important, right? We're all about functional strength. At the end of the day, your exercise should be making you stronger. It's not necessarily, from what we value, it's not necessarily about, getting super jacked, even though that will be a side effect eventually of resistance training. The in our opinion, the emphasis should be on strength, being able to use your body better as we age. Um, and so focus on how strong you feel during the motion, the tension that you're feeling in your muscles during the motion, and try to use as much of your body as you can throughout the movement. So not just body weight in the sense of being on your feet, but whatever you're doing. If you're doing, let's say, a shoulder press, you're going to get a lot more functional strength out of, let's say, doing it from a standing position where you actually have to use your core and your legs to support the motion rather than sitting down where your lower half is basically out of the equation, puts pressure on your back and things like that. So I hope that made it simple. That's the best I could do for now.
Just something to add in is choosing a program that you can stick to, a program that shows you demonstrations of proper form for the exercise, and something that is not going to overprescribe like too many exercises where it's like too many workouts per week, or the exercises are going to take too long and you're at the gym for 2 hours. You don't need to work out 6 days a week, right? So choosing a program that you're going to find enjoyable, workouts that you're going to like doing, and that you can actually maintain the same number of workouts per week. So for me, right now in this phase of life, it's only 3 workouts a week, and it's a program that I follow. And every month, new days of the program are created. So it keeps it fresh, it keeps it exciting, and it's very simple for me to follow. All I do is open up the app, and my workouts are there, and the video demonstrations are there if I'm not familiar with that exercise.
Yeah, you're using it's called SD Evolution, right?
Yep.
Okay, shout out to them. So under the like primal banner, Mark Sisson has a fitness pyramid. which kind of outlines what you should aim for in a very simple way. In the base of the pyramid, the most of the movement is non-exercise movement, just low intensity, walking, hiking, all that stuff. And then the next level up is resistance training, 2 to 3 days a week. I think this is something where people have in their mind, oh my God, I got to go to the gym for 2 hours, 5 days a week, or it's not even worth it. If you're doing resistance training 2 to 3 days a week, again, for the average person to maintain a general level of health and keep that in a sustainable manner, that's where I think the aim should be. And then every 7 to 10 days, a sprint type workout. That's kind of a caveat because I don't think everybody is ready for an all out sprint type exercise, even if it's not running, if it's on the rowing erg or the elliptical, whatever, where people you would regress or you would progress into sprinting. Um, if you're new to movement, I think you leave that one out for a while until your body is better conditioned to actually handle the all out effort. But yeah, if you're getting that low intensity movement throughout the week, 2 to 3 strength workouts, that's a pretty good benchmark and a simple way to go about it. So, and like you said, if you can have a program that guides you through that and takes the thinking out of it so that it's removing the barriers for you to actually show up and do it, then that's going to help you. How do we make sleep simple?
The first thing is just to set a bedtime where it's like, well, even sooner than that is a time where you turn off all the screens, right? So if your bedtime is 10 o'clock, then set a time, let's say 9 o'clock or 9:30 at the latest, where you're not going to have any screens, where you need to have a little bit of time where your body can kind of wind down and get ready for sleep. So if you set a hard bedtime at 10 o'clock and a hard stop of all screens, you put your phone away, you put it on the charger at 9:30, that gives your body at least a half an hour to kind of wind down. And I think that's if that is the only thing that you stick to is that bedtime, we're like kind of throwing it back to us being kids and our parents saying we have to be in bed by this certain time. You kind of have to hold yourself accountable to that as well.
Is half hour is half hour enough for screen time, or do you eventually want to work that back to a little bit longer?
Yeah, as a first, if you're new to this and you're not disciplined with turning the screens off and you kind of watch TV right up until you fall asleep, I think starting with that half an hour is important, but definitely you probably want to aim for, ideally, you want to aim for when the sun goes down, right? We're not going to have any bright lights or screens in our eyes because that's going to affect us being able to fall asleep. So ideally, when the sun goes down, you want to turn off um, bright lights and you want to have dim, uh, you know, candles or lamps in your house to kind of set your body tone to it's now nighttime and I need to go to sleep. So that's what I would suggest.
Yeah, quick background on that. We follow something called circadian rhythm, which is basically how our bodies know whether it's daytime or nighttime. This is involved in getting our organs functioning well, how our sleep cycles work, how restful our sleep will be, and so the the trigger for that is light based. So when you get up in the morning, everybody knows about melatonin, right? People take melatonin and go to sleep. The trigger to actually release melatonin is not having light come in your eyes. So that's why that's super important. And then conversely, in the morning, when you get light in your eyes, it suppresses melatonin so that you can wake up for the day. So that's why that's important. Yeah, bedtime, sleep routine, very simple. Go to bed, wake up at the same time, and yeah, get sunlight in your eyes first thing in the morning. That's probably the foundation for simple when it comes to sleep. Um, it's funny. I saw the Babylon Bee, like the meme news channel. I saw one yesterday, and it was like um, study finds no correlation between wife's insomnia and scrolling TikTok till 3 a.m. And it's just a picture of her on her phone in bed. It's like going back to like what you're talking about is a lot of people just that half an hour is a start because there's a lot of people that sit in bed and scroll even all the lights are on and they're sitting in bed on their phone and then put their phone down and you know just try to fall asleep. It's like You need that time for your body to not be having light in your eyes to actually wind down. Psychology. All right. What are some simple mind games we can play with ourselves?
What do you mean by psychology?
So, when we talk about the levers of health, we're talking about what things in your life can you leverage to get health outcomes on the other side. So, leverage is always about what's your input and what's your output. And the more leverage you have, that means you get more of an output for less input. Um, the first one is simply being self aware. This is like the foundation of everything. If you are not aware of your actions, why you're making the decisions you're making, how you're affecting the people around you, then you can't make any changes because you're not collecting any data, right? There's a phrase in, I don't know what it's in, if it's in business or science in general, which is um, what gets measured gets changed. And so if you're not actually aware of, oh, I told myself that I was going to do, you know, this many workouts this week and I didn't, but you don't know why, you can't see, oh, I actually was going to go to the gym and then I convinced myself that I was too tired or whatever the thing was, then you don't know how to actually make that change. Or, if you're road raging in your car and you're pissed off at everybody and you're not aware, you're not paying attention to yourself to realize, oh, actually I was pissed off at work because of this thing happening, and now I'm just carrying that frustration into the next scenario, and now it's coming out at, you know grandma or Toyota Corolla. It's like we have to start with the awareness.
Yeah, and to go off of what you said about holding yourself accountable and what you said you were going to do, I think it's another thing is um, when you're just starting out um, in any new routine or you're trying to achieve a goal in some way, it's to start telling yourself you're going to do something in actually completing that thing. It doesn't even matter how big or small it is. You said you were going to do the dishes right after dinner, then do the dishes right after dinner, like whatever you're choosing to do, um, just completing it will give yourself that trust in yourself, and you'll be able to build momentum and do harder and bigger things, right?
Yeah, I think we tend to overlook, that's something we talk about with having humility. We tend to overlook the importance of the small things, like I said I was going to wash the dishes, because it's important. The little things matter. Your life is just a accumulation of the small little choices we make. We kind of have, we have this idea in our head of these, rocky cutscenes where we're doing all the work and we're getting everything done for this big moment. It's like that doesn't really happen very much. That happens in small bits, but mostly life is a series of small decisions that determine who you are. And if you're the type of person that doesn't come through on the small things, then you won't come through on the big things either. So that's an excellent point. That's a really good place to start. Community, social connections, relationships. I would say definitely something that gets left behind when we talk about health. It's not something that people generally view as primary to their well-being. Everybody kind of knows, yes, community is important, my friends are important, my family's important. We tend to just think of those things as being there. We don't actually look at, well, how can I impact this? I mean, the easiest one is just do nice things for people. And not in a, oh, I'm going to get something out of this. Like, just take a moment. It kind of goes back to being to the idea of self-reflection, but use that same model of self-reflecting to also look at what are the what are the people around me doing today and what might help them a little bit, right? So this is something I catch myself with all the time because we don't work the same schedule. So I'll come home early, right? And usually on a lot of days I'm home a couple hours before you. And kind of get home and I get in that, ooh, I got the house to myself. I think of all the things that, I want to, maybe get caught up on work or play guitar or whatever the thing is. And then I try to catch myself and go, well, No, Leandra's had a longer day than I am. She's carrying a baby, so she's got a lot more, stress on her body. She's going to walk in the door. What could I do to brighten her day or take a load off her when she gets in the door? So maybe it's, having dinner prepared early, or making sure that the dishes are done and the kitchen's clean, or tidying up something that we didn't get to in the morning, or making sure the laundry's done. Like, just these little things that when you come in the door, I can help relieve some of the anxiety and unnecessary things that might, add more to your day. It's not a lot, but that habit of thinking about other people and trying to consider them will do a lot for your soul. And it'll also strengthen your relationships, because eventually people will start to notice those things. Um, and they'll start to reciprocate. And then you start to consider each other more.
And another thing I just thought of, because you do a lot of really nice things for me, um, every day, and I feel really lucky. Um, Showing appreciation to people, because people people don't realize, I guess showing appreciation is like the most basic act you can do for someone when they do something for you, and it just shows them that you're recognizing what they're doing. And I think that's something that, well, we didn't do right from the beginning, but we have been getting better at in our relationship, is like saying thank you after doing something simple. Like, you would say that like doing the laundry and doing the dishes and doing basic cleanup and mowing the lawn are all just like things that you should do anyways, right? They're just chores that you have to do. But you don't have to say thank you. But it's when you say it with meaning, um it and show appreciation, it really does add value to your relationship. And I think that's something that we started doing for a while now, but it's definitely improved our relationship, I think.
Yeah, you slotted in the point that I was gonna add on if you didn't make, which is you have to mean it. Be present with it. There's one thing to say, "Oh, thanks," versus really being specific about, "Hey, I know you had a rough day, but you came home and went and did something productive. Like, you got the kitchen cleaned up right away. Like, I see that you did that, and I appreciate it." Not just, "Oh, thanks for doing the dishes." Like, even though that might be the place to start, and that's okay too, but the more specific you can be about rewarding someone for their good behavior, we're training each other. And and you want to reinforce positive behavior in other people, um because it's good for them too, and it makes it worth it for them, and they're going to be more likely to want to do it. You're going to feel good about it, and then you're going to feel more motivated to do positive things, because that will be reciprocated. And then not only is your relationship better, but your life is better, because now you've motivated each other, you've trained each other to have higher expectations, because now you both know, oh, if I keep my shit together, it's not going to go unnoticed.
Yeah, well, that's basically the five main levers that we focus on, and that's, you know, the most basic things that you could do to start out and keep it simple, right? If you can start out doing these things, then you can obviously get more complex, but yeah, your life will greatly improve just by doing these simple things.